Welcome to Uplifting Upshift. I'm your host, Kyle Mealy, here to bring you business education and value without being boring. We're delivering high impact without the fluff or sap, maybe a little bit. And joining me on this ride is my amazing co-host, Mr. Kenny Lange. Kenny works with nonprofits and is a proud member of Second Gear. Kenny, what is happening, my friend?
Dude, I am freaking out with my Texas weather. I had to wear a jacket the other day, and now I'm in short sleeves. So I look forward to being sick this weekend.
Oh, fun. Before you get sick, though, let's talk to our guest, Tara Landis. Tara has an incredible bio, so I'll do the honor of reading it. So she's been a secret weapon for over 300 small business leaders have used as they solve operational challenges. She is a certified change management practitioner from the ProSci Institute and a licensed influence trainer from the
Cialdini.
I did pretty good. Don't quote me.
You should just have me read it.
Do you want to read it?
Do you find that these business guru types are really bad at marketing? Because why are they naming their institutes things that nobody can say?
Well, because they wanted me to flub it on this pod right now. So
this all stays in. This all stays in.
So the short answer is she's graduated over 1,000 students from the Bell Rock management training programs. She is incredible, and we're lucky to have her. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Your first Canadian.
I believe it is our first Canadian.
A?
All right.
Sorry about that.
If you do not drop your boots in there, I will be upset. I won't want a boot.
So what are we talking about?
No, I'm not from Scotland. I'm from Canada.
I'm from Scotland. That's I don't know. That's similar.
Tara, why don't you answer question number 1 of our rapid fire, because otherwise Kenny will get lost in a boot circle. Who's a business mentor you would love to shout out and give a little bit of extra love with, just to start us off on a high note?
I want to shout out to my business mentor, Brian Ahern. He has a company called Influence People, and I've been studying with the Cialdini Institute, Influence and Persuasion, and Brian is my coach there, and he is really just fantastic. He's taught me a ton. He's got a wonderful way about him, and he's a new granddad, so congratulations to Brian.
Congrats, Brian. I hope you didn't name your grandson after your institute.
Fortunately, he's got a girl, so he's good.
Oh,
yeah. Cialdini's more of a girl. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I'm kidding.
From the high Italian.
Yeah.
All right. Tara, what is something you wish every small business owner, whether they're for-profit or not, because Kenny and I agree on this, that they need to run, nonprofits need to run
they're all businesses.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. What's something you wish every small business owner knew?
I wish they knew the owner. You said the owner, right?
Yes.
I wish they knew that their primary job, the most important thing that they're supposed to do, is set the vision for the organization. Go live in the future for a bit, 5 years from now, what is it supposed to look like? And then preach that to everybody. They might guess wrong, right? We don't have a time machine. Nobody can see the future. And sometimes that makes them not want to do. I don't have a time machine. Okay, secretly we have one in Canada, but we're not allowed to tell you guys about it because anyway. No, but I really want them to figure out that they have to set that vision, and they often don't, and they get stuck in the weeds, but there's nobody else in the entire organization that can do that job but them. That's what I wish they knew.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just going to touch on it before I give you question number 3, because I so much agree with this, that there's a hero complex. And the value they created when they started the business is related to their ability to get stuff done and answer the questions, but that is actually not the value they need to create as they grow up.
Exactly. In fact, in my own company, I no longer run it because I knew that wasn't what I was good at. So I had to start it. I had to hustle and get the clients and do all those kinds of things. But once we had it, somebody else really needed to figure out what the vision was going to be. I was like, this is a vessel. Please. It's a good vessel. It's ship shape. Please figure out where it's going.
Then that begs the question of all the questions as far as it goes with vessels. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
A hot dog is not a sandwich. A hot dog is not a sandwich because it is not on slices of bread. That's why. Sorry.
Oh, I've never heard that argument.
It's not. And if somebody says, oh, we're out of buns, here, I'll put it in a couple slices of bread, there's instant disappointment because that's not a hot dog, that's a sandwich.
Wait, so you're saying that if I don't have any buns and I put my hot dog on bread, it's still not a sandwich?
That's right. If you put your wiener on bread, it's not a hot dog.
What if you fold the bread up, though, and it's now a bun, which is an East
Well,
Coast?
that's a hot dog, but it's not a sandwich. Like a lobster roll isn't because it's in the
in the groove.
I'm gone.
Yeah, we wiener on the bread. I know what happened.
That's the title. That's the promo.
I did it on purpose.
Golly. Okay. You baited me on that one. I
That
don't
was
appreciate
awesome.
But it didn't work. I need to reel in better.
No, because the quick fade or the quick switch to his face is what will work. I
don't know.
appreciate
Like what happens when the bun, let's say the bun, hey,
Go for it.
look, I have thoughts here. The
Go for
bun, sometimes if you buy cheap buns,
Mhm.
they will tear, right? They don't hold.
You're right.
But they're
And
not
now
slices. They're not slices.
They were sliced.
Like they have
when it
they have-
at the seam, it has a hinge, and then
But it has-
if
I
it
know, but
becomes
it has
an
crust.
unhinged bun
for your wiener.
for your wiener.
an unhinged bun for your wiener, does that then transform it magically into from hot dog to sandwich?
No,
Because now you have separate pieces, aka slices.
Nope.
Yep.
It was
No.
sliced
It
in
was
the
sliced.
middle.
It was sliced.
It didn't come that way unless you're being like really pretentious and buying like custom baguettes or something. In which case, you can get all. This is a family podcast, but you can get all the way off.
I'm just saying, the bun like has crust all the way around too.
Yeah, if I toast the bread, it has crust. Then
No, but not originally
Well, I
baked
see what you're
crust.
saying. It was the baking methodology.
The
yeah,
hot
but the
dog,
bread wasn't sliced. It wasn't born sliced. It wasn't born sliced. Okay, why do you think we say this is the best thing since sliced bread? People were just eating sandwiches with two loaves on either side, and just
Well, you may have me there. I don't. I don't know.
no further questions, Your Honor. I rest the defense.
Okay,
rests.
I just want to say that when you read my bio, it said nothing about my expertise in any form of cooking. But I will
we
say,
don't
I will
know.
ask
Kyle couldn't read half of it. We don't know what it said.
Let me ask you
Scholars
this.
maintain that the translation was lost hundreds of years ago.
Let me ask you this: is a hot dog without a bun?
Hot dog. Yes, it's a hot dog. What do you call? We call
So
it.
if it doesn't have a bun, is it a sandwich?
So the bread is irrelevant, is your position.
Yes.
It's all about the wiener.
It's all about the wiener. And I'm Gen X, man. That's what we were taught.
I don't even know. Yeah, I can't read.
So leadership.
Very into. No, here's what I'll say. I appreciate you, Tara, for hanging in there and having a firm opinion on this, because that's when I was thinking about this podcast. And that's what I really appreciate about Kenny is there's an opinion. And I think when you talk, I mean, there's a lot of people who have opinions, but not a lot of people will say them. We don't even have to open up that rabbit hole. I know I see you, but there's an opinion to be stated about leadership and management. So here's my hard switch. Your opinion on leadership and management.
Yes.
Start us down that doorway and we'll see how far we can run.
Okay. Leader sets the vision. The leader says, this is where we're going, and they communicate that vision. And if they're any good, they get people excited to follow them. You don't have a leader without followers. But so they have to both set the vision and get other people on board with that vision. Managers are about executing on whatever that vision is, getting it done, getting it to complete. Leaders, meanwhile, are probably living in the future. They probably think once they generated that idea and told someone about it, magically we're already there. And the manager's job is to bring the people along. Each individual snowflake comes with them. But the leader is just looking at everybody as exactly the same. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. And taking them wherever they want to go. There's a great analogy from Covey's 7 Habits book where he talks about it's a fable. A plane crashes in the jungle and it's a company plane. And tragically, all of the pilot and the co-pilot are killed, but miraculously, all the people come out of the plane completely unscathed. And inside the belly of the plane, outfall like this machetes. And so they're great. We can cut through the jungle. And so the workers, the individual contributors are out there like hacking. This is how I think it would work. They're hacking their way through the jungle. And the managers are standing behind them and organizing them and saying, go this way, and taking back dull machetes and sharpening them and passing the good machetes and making sure everyone's hydrated and they keep going. And finally, somebody climbs a tree and says, I got good news and bad news. We're making great progress. That's the good news. But the bad news is city's over there. We're going in the wrong direction. And I think that explains those roles really well.
Is that the difference between being like strategic and tactical?
Yeah, sure. I think that leadership has a role in tactics as well. They have a role in seeing whether those tactics are aligned with that vision, whether it makes sense. But yeah, you could also look at it that way.
But aren't some of the leaders, and I'm very
Yeah.
curious about this, but
Hit me.
aren't some of the leaders that we champion or celebrate, and they're called leaders, the ones who are on the front lines, digging in the trenches with the machetes? How do we deal with, what do you do with that?
I think we've got a language problem.
Mm.
I think language is really important. And I think that when we say everybody's a leader, I don't think that's true, although we may all have leadership qualities. When I was in university, I was a soph. I was like a second year that was supposed to help the first years. And I really clearly remember the people who were training us. They said that a leader is someone who jumps in to do what other people won't. And I thought, doesn't sound like leadership. That sounds like you're trying to get people to volunteer for things they don't want to do. And I don't think that that is the leader's role. I think the leader's role is setting the vision. That's when they have their leader hat on. The same individual could be out there with the machetes. The same individual could be out there cutting through the jungle, but they are not being a leader in that moment.
How would you, in that moment, then address the commonly said phrase of lead by example?
Right.
Here's what I want you to do. This is what I'm talking about.
I'm literally doing
it.
Here's the technique for hacking through the jungle.
I think that when all else fails, perhaps you need to show people how to do it. Show them. That could be part of describing what the vision looks like. However, I really think the big pitfall, especially in small organizations, the big pitfall the leaders fall into is actually doing other people's jobs and not their own. And they use that excuse, I'm leading by example. So let me give you an example. I got to hammer this structure together, and I'm the leader, and my vision is a house. And I keep asking the carpenters to hammer, and they're not hammering. I could jump in there and say, look, this is how you swing a hammer. This is how I want you to do it. But then I have to back off. Now I showed them. Now they're supposed to do the thing. I can't be in there doing the thing all the time. That's my perspective on it.
How do you, as a leader, right? So my job is to be the leader of my organizations, right? But we're building something that's never been built before in both of these.
Yeah.
So how do I time the balance between, and I want to click into the last resort piece, so maybe you can wrap that in here, is how do I time the time I'm showing the technique with the machete and the time I'm standing in the back going, keep going that direction?
I guess it depends on the circumstances. As I said, if you can find great machete wielders, then you never have to go in and show them how to wield the machete. This analogy is going to fall apart. But so if you can find great people and you know whatever, the bums in the seats, you know what kind of person you need, and you can find that talented person, you don't have to go in and show them how to do it. But otherwise, what we want to do is be able to describe what we're looking for, paint a picture of that future state. Because in fact, if you've got a really great vision of that future state that people can buy into, they're actually going to find better ways to get there than you probably have. If you're a really great leader, if you're really great at that, then you're probably not a really great machete wielder.
Gotcha. That goes back to set, like, here's the destination, but delegate the how we get there piece
Yeah.
to the people who are on the front line, to the people who would be closest to the work of making progress. So
Yes.
think more GPS than turn by turn.
Yes. We are a compass. Yeah. Go north. And really just painting that vision so clearly of what that utopia looks like when they're going to get there, so that they want it more, really giving them the why. Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it now? What's changing? Why is it changing? How is it changing? But stay away from actually executing. Now, again, in a small organization, you have to wear many hats.
Right.
So it's not to say that the leader wouldn't also be in the trenches doing those things. That's not what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
I'm saying that if they go into the trenches at the expense of setting and relating that vision, that's where the problems are.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Bob Iger.
It could be a both and. It shouldn't be an either or.
Yes,
Is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Kyle, what were you going to say?
But they're the only one that can do the leadership.
Bob Iger of Disney is not filling in as an extra for Thor. That's
right.
not happening.
Be a lot cooler if he did.
It'd be way cooler, but I
someone get an AI to do that just so we can see it.
No, I like the either or the sometimes, like, I think that gives it clear. And I'd love to lean into, right, the individual contributor, the machete wielder, and I'm going to try and pull us out of that metaphor so it's a little easier to manipulate. The machete wielder, the individual contributor, they're at the tree level, right? They're looking at bark and vines in front of them, so they can't see the destination. And so you need the leader from the back calling out, yes, this way, no, that way, here's why.
Yeah.
Is that the motivation part that we think of as leaders doing, is the cheerleading part, or is that not their role either? I'd love your thoughts on that.
So when they're saying, here's why we're all going this way, I think that's the role of the leader. And they've got that 10,000-foot view, so they can see over the hill to the next village. They've got that. I actually think it's the manager's job to tie that vision to the individual motivation for each of the individual contributors. So and different people are motivated by different things and in different ways. Kyle, you mentioned earlier that your partner mentioned that you're motivated by competition, but you corrected them and you said, no, it's not that I'm motivated by competition with others. I want to be better than I was yesterday. And that really isn't competition. That's more like accomplishment. I'm motivated to be better today than I was yesterday. And so if I was the manager of Kyle, I would be wanting to create opportunities for you to be able to figure out how you did better today than yesterday, and give you opportunities to do that. The leader, meanwhile, is standing up going, focus him that way. Make Kyle go over there. And I'd be like, okay, Kyle, if you cut more trees today than yesterday, it's going to be even better. And I'm trying to, so that's the manager's role, is to tie that vision to the individuals.
Because they're closer to those frontline individuals, and that's bringing the best out of them and figuring out how to connect the work that they're being asked to do with who they are is a significant part of their responsibility, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. And I'm also saying another mistake I see in small businesses where managers have too many direct reports, and therefore they can't do that incredibly important job of motivating the direct reports. They're working 99% of the time as an individual contributor. Whatever time is left over off the side of their desk, they're trying to be a manager of 15 people. How could you ever have the time to get to know them and connect that vision to their unique needs? I just learned recently that the leader of NVIDIA, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but the leader of NVIDIA, one of the largest companies in the world.
AI.
Yes, him. 60 direct reports.
Whoa.
60. That guy is leading hard, and he's clearly
AI.
got some good strategic chops, but I don't think he's managing those people. 60 direct reports. He gets them to send him an email every morning with the top 5 things they're going to do that day. That's not the management job of connecting the strategy to that individual contributor.
We'll talk about the balance between the leader and the manager, because in my head, when you tell that story, is he really managing the managers? And it sounds like he's not, by the definition you're putting together. But how does the leader and the manager then play? What does that scenario look like?
The leader is the manager of the managers.
Right.
So the leader figures out that vision, has this great idea, and their job is to connect that to the individual managers. They're acting as a manager to the managers, if that makes sense.
It does. No, it totally does. So how is that different? And I think that's what is interesting to me here is as we scale up, the leader moves further to the back, and then you have the front line, and then you have the managers, and that tiering, that stretch happens. And so how does the leader be the leader and the manager to the managers? Do they really have to hear or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the hats. They have to know. There are all sorts of different strategies for how to manage time and for how to manage. There's all sorts of strategies for that. But the bottom line is that is a bit of the art, is making sure that leadership job is getting done. There's only one person who can do it. So another way they can do it is they can hire an integrator, right? Yep. So now they only have to manage one person, and the integrator can manage all the managers. There's all sorts of strategies
whatever
for
you
it.
call it, second and number two leader, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, COO, general manager, whatever you want to call it. But the point is that there's a job at the very top of that organization. There is one person whose job that is, and they better be doing it, or else nobody's doing it.
What's your opinion on manager to direct report ratio? Because you mentioned 60 in the NVIDIA example, which is terrifying to me. I wouldn't be able to do that. 15 sounded terrifying to me. The number I've heard is 7.
Yeah, they say 5 to 10. 10's getting out of control.
Okay.
That's the standard logic for a full-time manager. I do think that there are organizations where you can go bigger, but those are really big organizations, and they have what I would call professional management. And what that means is a person who full-time is a manager. That's all they do. They don't jump in and cut the trees down, ever. They're just being a manager. Those people can maybe handle more. But in most of the organizations I work with, there's no people who are just managers.
Yeah, I've heard 5 to 7 quite a bit.
Yeah.
But even if you look at, I heard this example that if you look at like the SEAL teams, like there's 6 people. One of them is the team leader, and then they have 5. I was like, and these people accomplish way more with way fewer than anybody else. Like it is a beautiful balance of efficiency and effectiveness. And I think it could be argued most companies are not doing a better job of training people to manage effectively than SEAL teams or other special forces. So what in God's green earth makes you think you can handle 10, 15, 20 direct reports?
If they set the bar here and you're like, fine.
That's some weak stuff, Navy. I got this. Watch this. There's about to be management team 6 up in this piece.
But in fairness, I will say it's rarely the manager who says, you know what, bring them all on. Make them all report to me.
Oh, for sure.
It's usually leadership that's saying, you can handle a couple more. We're just going to bolt a couple more. We don't really have someone yet. So we'll just fold them in. It'll be fine.
Just fold it in.
You fold it.
Yeah.
Just fold it in.
Extras.
I can't show you
like
everything.
A hot dog.
Could you show me one thing? Yeah. That is one of my favorite scenes from Schitt's Creek.
The best scene from that old
Canadian, by the way. Canadian.
I know you didn't have to make that point, but that's fine.
But it's a valid point. It's a well-respected point.
That's fine. But yes. Yes, I mentioned the Navy SEALs, and you're like, that's a little too American. How about Schitt's Creek?
You brought up Schitt's Creek.
You said fold it in and did the whole thing, okay? You brought Eugene Levy into this, okay?
Okay. Fair. It's part of my DNA. I don't even know I'm doing it.
Is he I think he's probably a Canadian national treasure of some sort.
I would agree.
He's on a mountain somewhere, probably.
Yeah, I can speak.
Just his eyebrows. Just his eyebrows are on the mountain.
Yep.
Those are strong genes too. Hey, you pass those right along.
Yes, he did.
Eugene.
He went right down. That was very good. It was good.
Yeah.
It was
Eugene, me, Gene, we all Gene.
We are up creek without a paddle at this point because I have to do the whiplash part of the thing and try and.
Yeah, let's see you bring it back now. Let's test those skills, Kyle. What do you got?
I just want to go back to management. No, I think it's funny because actually, no, I got it. Here we go. Here it comes. You had in that scene a frontliner and a manager who clearly didn't know how to transfer the skills. And I think one of the things that you often talk about is the skills associated with management. And yelling louder does not necessarily create a more effective frontline team member. So could you dive into there?
Yeah, I can. First of all, congratulations, Kyle. That was great. I think that you did better today than you did yesterday.
Gosh,
So
yeah,
good job.
1%. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, see, I don't want accomplishment. I want competition.
My desire. It's funny because that I would say, all
I
right,
use
we
that
have the
spark
number
to
one.
burn down my opponents.
I want them to burn themselves down because they just can't keep up.
Torch in the
All right.
forest.
So speaking of management, I I do think that managers have a real tough row to hoe, especially in small business, because they don't necessarily have the training to do it, and they don't even know where to get it. They can get it from us, but they don't even know really where to get it. And you often hear them say, I think I'm going to go do an MBA. Maybe that will help.
Yeah.
MBAs don't teach you how to run mom and pop's cheese shop, teach you how to run IBM. And so I think it is a real challenge understanding these two roles, leadership and management, and how they're supposed to work and how they're supposed to be effective. And if all you've ever seen is someone yelling their message louder in order to be heard, then you think, oh, I guess that's how you manage people. Or you think, wow, I was in this circumstance and my manager just kept yelling louder and louder, and I'm never going to do that. And then they completely like drop that tool from their somewhat empty toolkit and just say, okay, I'm never going to do it that way. And that can also be a mistake.
To
I
go in
like
the other
that. The
ditch.
the management by avoidance of past bad managers.
Yes. Yes, exactly. How do you
Yeah.
define your management style? I don't do it like he did it.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I have more of
Well-
a hands-off style. It's like parents. They're like, just let the kids raise themselves. I was like, that's called abuse, and that's how they end up at my house. Sorry, I'm a foster parent for anybody who's curious about that.
Yes.
That's what I mean by that, not that I'm kidnapping children. You were just talking about the one when you say yell it louder, it makes me think of like when you're traveling internationally and like they can't understand you. And so you just talk a lot louder, hoping that would get through to them. And I was like, it doesn't work there. And it doesn't work even when we speak the same language. Because all I'm going to do is turn down my hearing aid and not listen to you. Actually, I don't have them. But I think that's what my wife does to me. She has them because I'm loud. But sorry, I got to snap it back. I got to do a hard right.
Here it comes.
Or
Whiplash
but
yourself.
I agree with you too on the MBA is just not the way to go. I'm not saying it's useless, but
No.
I am saying that it's not a cure all. It's not a silver bullet, because I've spoken with some people who they have a very expensive piece of paper, but could not build a business to save their life, especially not an entrepreneurial one. But there is a statistic that I heard, no, it was probably the last 12 to 18 months, that most people are put in a position of management, some sort, probably around like 32, 33, something like that. Early 30s is usually when most of them get like a real like management thing. I'm not talking about being the key holder at Hollister in the mall, but
MOD.
that's a
The MOD.
that's a clip. But most of them don't receive any sort of training until their early 40s. There's almost a decade gap for the vast majority of managers between when they're given the responsibility and when they're actually trained on how to do it.
Yeah, it's a sink or swim kind of, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
which
Kenny,
honestly I think is
out of the blue, every podcast we do, all of a sudden you bring in this really thoughtful, rich data-based nugget that just is wow. And like that, I didn't whiplash. I just came right along with you. So well
thank
done.
you. It's been great.
Not earned.
Yeah.
But
I go out on a high note before I tank the rest of the episode.
We want the roller coaster. We all want to see the hero fall. So sink or swim, I think that is a really good one. 8-year gap, sink or swim. How does that happen, Tura? Like you come in when that has happened.
I do. We come in when it has happened. Hopefully we come in before it happens.
It was dirty.
Yeah, I think actually this is my belief. I think every company, before they promote someone to management, should put the person through management training so they can see whether they actually want that job or not. I think a lot of people in my experience, want to be the manager for two reasons. They like the status and they like the money. There are also people who are very well suited to managing people, but that's a lucky break for the companies more often than not. And so there should be a path for people to make more money and have more title or prestige without having to manage people.
Yep.
So I think that people who are going to be promoted should learn what management is. I think typically they don't. And I think companies will promote people to manager because they're the best individual contributor and because they think that managers can just follow my lead. Just do it as I do. As you were saying earlier, just I'll lead by example. I'll manage this by example. But that's not it works in some cases, but it's one tool among many in the toolkit. And if I'm building a house, I want to have lots of tools in my toolkit, not just one.
Kyle could probably speak to this even better than I can. The classic top salesperson gets promoted to sales manager, and then it ends up leading to that, typically to that person leaving the organization.
Or burning out.
Because
they've basically taken on the sales targets of the whole group now instead of just their own.
Right. Yeah, but the skill set to be a top salesperson is very, I could say, yes, building rapport, relationships, stuff like that is important in management, but it is a very different application. And in most cases, very different skill set that is necessary to be good at one versus the other.
I'd half agree. I think it's the same skill set, but it's a different motivation. So if you're motivated by making other people, if you're really motivated by seeing other people's success, then that's a great application. And salespeople will tell you that they're very motivated by seeing their customers' success. But are they really motivated by that, or are they motivated by closing the deal and getting to the next one? If you're motivated by closing the deal and getting to the next one, it can.
Opinions on this.
It can, but if you're not motivated by those other people's success, if you can't put that ahead of your own success, you're not going to be a great manager.
The worst case of this is the best the salesperson becomes the sales manager, and they bring the machete with them to the management.
Yeah.
And do the same behaviors just to their team. They sell, they cajole, and it promises.
Yeah, and they see it as a transaction.
And well, my opinion on salespeople, for the record, is if you're still using the old sales methodology of salespeople sell and close, and that's all they're motivated by, you're losing. You just don't know it yet. Your numbers will tell you next year. But I agree with you on the relationship part so deeply, because the manager who's going to survive management is the person who actually gets the benefit, like the joy from seeing the other rise. Otherwise, watch out. That work that you think that manager sits there on their butt doing is actually some of the hardest work, because you've got to pick up the pieces when your frontline person comes up and the cat has died. Something awful like that has happened and they're falling apart. And that is what makes them happy. Oh, or just like all the crazy, you guys have all been in management. We all have had a story where we're like, how am I going to possibly help this person? Right now, they're in a terrible position in their world, but they've got to show up for work. And it's just like that.
I've never had a cat die in the course of my management, but maybe.
Oh my gosh. Guys, I had a situation. I had a woman who I managed. I'm not going to say her name, but if she's listening, she knows who she is. And she was cat sitting for another employee. Okay, so there's two of them. And it was like a 7th-story apartment, and it was hot in Toronto, Ontario, Canada in the summer. And she left the window open, and she killed the other employee's cat while the other employee was away. So
on purpose?
Your cat? No, the cat jumped out the cat committed suicide. She didn't actively kill the cat. She passively killed the cat by a lack of care.
Yeah. But now if
the dead cat is in the lap of the...
You can't fix the dead cat.
No.
That's the thing.
Can't swing, like it says, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a bad manager in this place. I think that's the saying.
It's very difficult dealing with their problems that people have, but I actually think the most difficult, the highest skill in management is developing the really great individual contributors, the ones that don't have dead cats, the ones that are like really outperforming everyone else. How do you make them even better? That's actually the hardest management task.
And notice we've not used any machete cliche at this point, which I'm very grateful for, because that's the start of this whole idea. So we're not going to bring that in now. But with your point, we're talking about two very different things than the actual frontline work to be a successful manager. It's the development. It's
Oh no.
the competitive nature, and then sometimes this other stuff pops up that the manager also has to catch. And so that is the completely different skill set than any kind of knife work.
We lost Penny completely.
Oh,
Oh
So we're
no.
talking about two different things. It's like machetes and dead cats, and then you're talking about catching things. I'm thinking of catching the dead cat. I can't do this.
hidden in here is actual, real, valuable information.
Hidden in here. Yes, this is the uplifting part. We'll get to the shift later.
What
Yes.
are some of the skill sets that aren't related to cat for machetes that a manager has to deal with in a day-to-day?
But I want to talk about managing feline mental health. The awareness month is
I'm more of a
coming up.
dog person, actually. So I
no. There's a nonprofit right now going, Kenny, you're speaking my language. I've always
There actually we just wrote a grant.
So you're saying $7,000 grant for this right now.
Yeah, we'd like to offer our condolences and services to this manager so that you can spot the warning signs earlier.
Yes.
You got to be able to understand the motivation. Is the cat distant because it's a cat and generally an a-hole? Or is it actually going through something in this moment because the kitty litter was changed? And now
it was going through the window is what it was going through. But
Tara, I think you got the best one-liner.
Life 9
the
all
best
over.
one-liner of all. Right there.
That's the headline. That's the title. Promo. The window. Throwing management rules out the window, and it's just a nice illusion.
Comma, not the cat.
Comma to the top.
Tara, this will make it in. I have no.
I will be pissed if it doesn't.
So we don't need a for real.
I know where Lincoln lives, and I will make sure it is included.
So where were we?
So how do you sharpen the machete of management when? Okay, that was bad.
Sharpen the claws.
Oh boy.
Yeah, sharpen the claws.
So managers need lots of tools in their toolkit. They need to know how to delegate, how to set expectations. They need to know how to motivate. They need to love their employees just a little bit, not in a creepy way, but in a way that they want them to develop, like a parent loves their child. They need to know how to identify who the right people are and bring out their best skills. There's all sorts of things managers need in their toolkits.
Agreed. And this is going to feel like a hard right, but it is, and it's not cat or machete related. So yay me. Something you mentioned about before the big leap was that from individual contributor to manager. That's what I don't know what y'all are talking about. That's the leap. That is on the leader for making the promotion, or a senior manager for promoting somebody who didn't genuinely want to be a manager. I'm curious as to your take, research experience, whatever reference about having, whether you're achievement, competition minded, or just trying to, like you said, they take it for status, they take it for the pay,
the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are organizations contributing to this? Maybe just by the way in which they're set up. Maybe it's the way the org chart's built or something to where there is who doesn't want to get promoted? Who doesn't want to progress in their career? Because just being the top salesperson over and over and over and over again doesn't feel like progression. It feels like good money, but it doesn't come with additional stat. You can only win the President's Award and go to Cancun so many times before you're like, what are you doing? Do you have a new title? Have you had a new title in the last 5 years? No, I haven't. And that doesn't feel like progress. So how do we start to reconcile how organizations are innately structured and set up so that we get people who are a great fit for their positions at their time in their career versus I just got to get to the next rung on the ladder.
I think this actually does come back to the leadership issue. So what does the vision look like? And I encourage, especially in smaller organizations, for them to develop 2 career tracks. So one career track being the people management track and one career path being the technical track, and to become the best technician, whether it's salesperson or
And
whether it's engineer, doesn't matter what it is, but to have 2 different tracks that people can run their career down. And I really do recognize what you're saying. If I've won the President's Club 5 years in a row, who cares at that point about the 6th year? But I will say, people like Kyle, it's not enough just to win the President's Club. They also have to do better than they did last year. And so a really great manager of that kind of person will very clearly demonstrate to them how they are progressing in their career, even if it's just the recognition is still won the President's Club again.
But it's in, and I love what you're saying about the 2 tracks. So I want to just, I've seen that work before, because there are technical operators. There are people who just want to do the work better than anybody else.
Yeah.
You can have junior, level 1, level 3, level 5, whatever, like scale that up, however. And yeah, definitely there are people who just want to be the best at their craft, period. They want to
And they
optimize the 1% of the 1% from last year.
And you can expand that. You can expand their reach as well. Say you got the level 5 person, you can make them a mentor instead of a manager. Like they can still influence others' behaviors. They are the ones that can lead by example.
Mm.
They're the ones that can show you how to do it by doing it. But they're not the person's manager. They're just the best. And everyone wants to be like the best.
And they're lead by example. I can see that, because you're really maintaining the leadership to what is good about the work, not the organizational leadership.
Exactly.
Well, how many entrepreneurs, founders in particular, but I think it applies if you've been promoted up from management, they just, the more they get, and this is from their perspective, that they feel more mired in the administrative side of operating the organization or the team or the department. They feel like they're getting further and further away from the work that they were actually good at to begin with, right? I started my digital marketing agency and I was building the websites. I was doing that. And as time went on and I needed to hire more people, I was doing less and less of the actual design work. And at first I was like, wait, shouldn't I be the one doing it? Like, it's my face on the things. It's actually doing that was actually how I started to figure out, actually, I just really love the game of business more than I love building the websites. And that became a key indicator for me on what my career path might need to look like. Versus I've met other people in that same space and others now who are like, I love actually, I spoke to somebody this weekend, a friend of mine who also owns an agency, and I asked him, how are things going? And he's been in business for 10 years. That's no small feat, right? And he goes, I love doing the work. He goes, I hate running the business side. Like he's
I literally quit.
Yeah.
I literally quit running my business. My business that I founded. I hired someone to lead the company. They are right now, as we are having this conversation, they are driving to a strategic retreat. And I am not, because I just want to do the work. I love the work. I'm a great employee. People like, and it's like for my partner, I'm a great employee. It works out really well for us. I don't want to lead it. I don't want to.
What a cool position to be in self-reflection, because I know a lot of owners who are just barely hanging in there. They're feeling comfortable because they can swoop in and be the hero and be the employee, but they're still holding the whole business back because they keep fighting for that leader seat when they don't love it. And I don't say they don't deserve it. I don't want to say that. They obviously deserve it, but it's not in the best interest of those around them.
But they also,
I just want to love my job.
But they also would love for someone to come in and do that so they could go to the work, but it feels like a massive step down. And I'm curious, Tara, like how did you, as you reflected and you made that move, how did you make that transition for yourself mentally, emotionally? Because You started a business, you're doing very well, you're doing the things, you've got the title and the position, owner, CEO, founder, entrepreneur, badass, like whatever. And
Well, I
then
kept that title.
Yeah.
okay, so keep that one. That's good. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's step number 1.
Title.
Step number
No,
2,
that's a good point.
like
Keep the perspective of, hey, I am a badass. I don't have to be the CEO.
you do have to start to think, because if you're an entrepreneur, you are somewhat, at least the good ones, are aware of like public perception and perception of themselves and stuff in their networks in the marketplace. And you have to tell people like, yeah, I'm not leading my own company. I stepped away from that. I'm doing this.
I'm really proud of what I accomplished. I don't see it as a step down. I see it as a step toward
And
what
I'm
I
not saying
wanted.
it is, by the way.
No,
I'm
I
just saying
understand
that
that.
I
But-
in conversations, I've had other people say, I don't want that because that feels like regression.
I understand. I get it. I knew you weren't saying that about me, but I'm just saying from my perspective, that was my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal. I never really wanted to start the company. I really wanted to do a specific kind of work. I couldn't find a company that was doing that kind of work. I had to invent it myself. I did. I did the founder thing. And once I had a good platform built, my next challenge was finding someone to run it so I could keep doing the thing. It's all I wanted to do was just my job. It's all I wanted to do. I had to create this whole infrastructure just to be able to do my job the way I wanted it. And I'm really proud of that accomplishment. And I'm still the founder. They can't take that away from me.
Right.
But I get to do the work, and I couldn't do the work. I couldn't do the work very well because I was always pulled in a million different directions running the company. And it felt terrible. I didn't like that feeling. Now I feel better. I'm happier.
Yeah, you did what you had to do so you could do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I earned it. And so I'm proud of earning that. And I think actually there are a lot of people out there who have that feeling as well, that they feel stuck in a leadership role that they didn't necessarily want and they don't really know how to get out of it.
It's like a necessary evil, and that
Yeah.
they're not sure how to trade or reconcile or reframe for themselves.
Yeah, and I work with leaders a lot on that. And you often hear them saying they want to hire a second in command. But what they really mean is they don't want to lead anymore. That's what they don't actually want a second in command. They want someone to do all the leadership stuff that they are just not doing.
Yeah, they wanted to do the job. So they started a way to do the job, and now they just want to get back to doing the job, but they're stuck in the leader. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like we could go so much deeper. I want to be respectful of the time and the energy. Tara, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'm really grateful for it. Kenny, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here and breathe. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun.
Anybody who watches this, if you are not subscribing now, because my goodness, we are crushing it here.